just a little bit past 3 p.m., so I'll call to order the Joint Management Committee of Rusk County and Ladysmith. The first item on your agenda is to approve an amendment to minutes of the August 29, 2022 Joint Management Committee meeting. I'll ask the city administrator to explain that. It's a very minor item, but just a correction.
Yeah, so what happened back in August, the committee approved replacing a faulty manual loading dock over at Fritz Avenue. It would be Fritz 3, which is occupied by Rockwell Automation. It was an old, really beat up loading dock that was a manual one and wasn't actually raising and lowering like it was supposed to, so it was a safety hazard. The board approved replacing that with a new electric model. The quote on that was $13,517.10, which was approved, and then it was also noted that the county would pay that, so we could track the cost of the improvements to the building, and then the city was actually going to reimburse the full cost for that. So the error was just in the minutes of rounding that dollar amount off, and not including the 10 cents, so it's just a 10-cent change. I believe the invoice has already actually been paid, so this just formalizes it, makes everything kosher for when the auditors come in and compare everything.
Approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, did you get the second? Anyone else need to clarify the motion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried. One of the two items that I just passed out to you isn't listed necessarily on the agenda, but it kind of comes into play at several different locations. And it's labeled memo at the top, dated July 8th, 1997. I'd ask that you all read that at some point. I think it's somewhat of a segue from the very end of our previous meeting, where there was a lot of concern expressed about how low some of the lease rates seem to be on some of the property that we manage. And what I want to show you here is, if you just look at the proposed lease rates that I was proposing at that time, over a quarter century ago, when we look at what we're actually charging in some cases now is less than that, even though that period of time has passed and inflation's taking its toll on various costs. So our goal at that time was to get up to $3 a square foot in the 5th year, and for whatever reason over the years that didn't always happen. I don't know if we've got anything hardly. We did, I think, approve a few last week that got up to $3, but it took us a quarter of a century to get there. Now, I'm blaming all of us for that, including me, because I sat here with you guys in previous years, and shouldn't be that way. I emailed a couple of appraisals to Ashley here a few minutes ago, so that she could print those off for you if you want them in full. But I think there's mention in those appraisals that in neighboring communities, lease rates tend to run up in the $5 to $7 per square foot range, which, you know, is getting up around and above double what we are. And, you know, that doesn't mean we can get there overnight, because we're tied in to some of the rates that we have in current leases, but just underscoring the need to work those up in a direction that will provide us enough money to not only pay our operating costs, but to get back to the original intention was to make a little bit of profit, which at that time, I believe the intention was to use that to help support the county economic developer position, the profit. But unfortunately, the profit that apparently hasn't been made. And, read it in full, you know.
You know, back, if I remember right, back in those days, it wasn't easy to find renters either.
Oh, no.
We were, you know.
And that is
I think
probably-
We purposely kept them low so we could get somebody in there.
Yeah, and I know that the, situation with Gates Avenue has come up. And I recall that we were, 5R processors was in arrears in a big way. And we had a choice of evicting them, and maybe in hindsight, maybe we should have. But we didn't want at the time to have to put over 100 workers out on the street with no family income, when we probably weren't gonna get paid anyway. So we allowed that to go on for a time, in hopes that it would get corrected. It never did get corrected, and we all know that some of the people that were involved in that are in prison. So I remember coming out of a meeting, and I'm talking a little bit too much out of school here, but I recall looking at Mr. Rabin as we walked out the door after listening to the one fellow. And, one of us said to the other one, "That guy's a crook." And it turns out he was.
Hey, it was absolutely the truth too. Look at him now.
Yeah, exactly. He's wearing an orange suit. With that said, moving on to the animal shelter. There's an item on the agenda to recommend seeking a request for proposals for a shelter addition. I need a little clarification there.
I don't think, Jill, did they do that this morning? No, so then I don't think we need any.
Okay, and what my
John,
question was,
John Rundstrom came into our meeting the other day with, he was going to do a drawing, or he had a drawing, I think.
Mhm.
Right? So, I know he was working on it.
so was the request for proposals to actually construct it or to get a design complete?
I think it was designed.
Okay, that would be good, because the drawing that I've seen is just a back of the napkin type sketch, and I know the, city building inspector would need to see a drawing that showed, alterations to heating, ventilating, air conditioning, to make sure that access and egress were proper and that sort of thing. So you probably need an engineer or architect to, draw
Yeah,
that
you would-
document up.
You'll need some state approved drawings on that one,
Yeah.
for sure.
So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't jumping right into looking for construction costs.
I think,
Gary, you handed that out, didn't you, last meeting? We just
Yeah.
had that little block on the end of the animal shelter.
Yeah.
And showed a little distance of it.
Yeah, it was just a preliminary drawing that Johnny kind of, sketched out there, but, nothing, I don't think nothing's been, finalized or anything like that.
Okay, very good.
The next item then on that agenda, Gary, did you happen to get involved in seeking a proposal for paving that area?
Yeah, I put it on there, I did ask in property also, and I think we were just gonna wait on it, but, cause I just don't know where the money's gonna come from for it.
Alright.
It's kind of a wish list, I guess.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments on that item? If
you're
not,
talking about paving, you're talking about blacktop, right?
Yep, just the horseshoe there or whatever, yeah.
if not, we'll move on to the library. And the item indicates review possible action on proposal for HVAC work. Gary, again, do you have anything for us there?
Well, we got 2 quotes already. I wanna put an RFP out, to get, some more quotes, but,
So are you seeking action here to authorize getting the RFP, or
no, I guess we don't need nothing.
Okay.
On this.
you just want more time to get a
Yes.
couple more
Correct,
proposals?
yeah, because I think in the last meeting, you guys wanted to get it kind of itemized, I believe. Kind of, it's, I had kind of got a lump sum, kind of.
Sure.
on that.
The next item there is relative to the second handout that I've provided. And that has information on 2 sides, both of which are change orders to the contractor, Lake Builders, which has been working on that rehabilitation project at the library. On one side, there's a proposal for, I believe, about $7,298, which maybe, increase in material costs and new mobilization for this year by a subcontractor. The other side, I think, is a little over $10,000 and relates to complete replacement of 2 round windows on the south face of the building, which have been a maintenance nightmare from early on because they've been hard to keep sealed. So I believe this proposal was to replace those with square windows. And I don't necessarily have any further thought on that, but if Randy is a member of the library board or Christina as the library director, if either of you have anything you wanna add there, feel free.
Well, I do remember, the company out of Eau Claire that was doing this on there indicated that it was difficult to get a good seal around a round window. And I think those that are in there probably are showing some rot and stuff in there, so that's,
Is there any sentiment on the library board? Does anybody have an issue with just removing them and replacing it with blank wall, or?
I don't think so.
I don't think we've discussed it,
Okay.
so.
Seems like a fairly large amount of money. There's a lot of glass on the south face of the building. It probably looks attractive, but I don't know how much we can afford to spend on lipstick, if you will. So we can leave that, maybe pending some further input from the library board.
I guess I'd advocate for just making a decision, putting it around and moving forward. I think we've drug the library out way longer than it needs to. I would think you make a decision either way today, because Chad still has to get this on the schedule too, which is quickly filling up. Sure. So, with all due respect, of course.
Marty?
I guess I would say that, I think that if you look at the expense, and you look at where the light, where the windows sit and everything else, and the problems that I'm not saying that just because you're gonna put square windows in, you're still not gonna have problems, whatever. And the amount that's gonna come in, I would like to see a second proposal, just to close it off. And, I don't hear any hue and outcry. The fact that you have to have a window up there anyway. I guess I'd like to see a proposal before we vote on something like this.
Does that work for you?
Just giving everybody-
Texting Chad is.
As I look to the right here, I realize that I forgot my little yellow sticky on the top of my page, and that was to welcome John Kenyon onto the, board here as the city of Ladysmith's voting member. And, Mr. Reynolds will continue to sit on the board pursuant to County Resolution 91-115, I believe it is, which provided that the Ladysmith Development Corporation would have a member on the board, but a non-voting member, because the corporation was heavily involved in initial development of a lot of these properties. So again, his role will be as a non-voting member, but we also recognize that his expertise in heating, ventilating, air conditioning, plumbing, and those things has helped a lot over the years and should continue to. So.
Response to that, I would just recommend you, just that, I'm here as the president of the IDC. Since the IDC has been involved in a lot of economic development, with funding and so on and so forth, so. If you get to the point where you're tired of listening to me, just tell me no.
Thank you. And again, welcome, Mr. Kenyon.
Thank you.
Okay, what's the final now on this, on the library, as far as the updates or the?
I guess there's a feeling here that we should get a proposal to remove the round windows and just, create wall. Close the openings in.
If I can interrupt again.
Go ahead.
Could you take action on the other change order so they can at least get,
Sure.
their EPIS folks? I'm sure if they can give another bid to cover it over, you can just add that into the EPIS if they're already there.
I gave away all my copies and didn't keep one for myself, so just anyone that's got it, if you want to make a motion to approve the other change order, I'll entertain a motion.
That's what you're looking for. That's fine.
Just shy of 7,300.
Yeah. Quote is 7298.68. Anybody care to make a motion to approve that?
That's gonna be for the EPIS now?
Yes. Mr. Hauser has made a motion.
That was it, because the south side was a, from carryover from
Yeah.
the year before, that, in that time, there was gonna be more work involved in that anticipated.
Correct. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Raven has seconded. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no? Motion carried. Moving on to item C, maintenance. I believe that you all should have received an email from me probably as much as a week ago. That might have been several, maybe a dozen or more pages, that gave some very detailed listings of maintenance items that the county maintenance crew has worked on at virtually, I think, every location that's probably listed on this page. I think that's excellent. It does bother me when we have to spend too much time at a meeting, talking about a light switch or something that doesn't work in a particular room at a particular building. And I thank the maintenance department for Gary in particular for getting this list together. I hope we can keep it going that way, give it to you in advance, so you can scan through it as you see fit, but not spend a lot of time dwelling on all those little things. On the other hand, I'd be the first one to tell you that little things turn into big things if they're not taken care of. But this shows us that they are, and thanks again for that. Anything, Randy? I don't know if you planned on sticking around for the meeting, Gary, otherwise, another reason that I had for putting you up at the top was so that we could get you, moving if you had other things to attend to, because frankly, I don't know how a crew your size takes care of 174 facilities or whatever the number is now that I believe is indicated on your insurance records. But I did wanna ask you, relative to the Doughty Road building, I'm jumping ahead here, item E. Were you able to check with the county highway department to see if they had a lift that would allow your crew to install rain handlers on that building on 501 Doughty Road?
I haven't checked with them yet, but I do know they have a lift. And I believe that's something that we'll be able to do.
Yeah, and this is probably, the sidewall height there's probably 18 to 20 feet, does anybody know? Actually, you might have you had the plans earlier today for this building.
I'd say they're all 20 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a fairly good lift. All right, thanks. Back to the ADF plant, item D. There's been an item on the agenda there for a long time to get a proposal from the county highway department to pave part of the gravel access back to that building, because when semis back up or garbage trucks, they've been getting mired in the gravel. Any update from anybody on that?
I'm gonna have to talk to the new highway commissioner.
Okay.
They kinda got lost in the transition of the old one.
Sure. Thanks. Anything else on the ADF plant from anybody? If not, moving back to the Doughty Road building, item 2E. I think the city administrator has something to update you on relative to removal of the dust collection system.
Yeah, if we can hit 2E, the first bullet point, and then also include 2G.
Sure.
Second bullet point.
Yep.
Did get a contact actually just yesterday from Kyle Chikalski from Centerline Architectural. That's the old Morse building, or the old Beechworth building. That makes it more familiar. His company would be interested in removing those and just taking them free of charge to us. We had previously had a recycling group that had shown interest and then backed off, but he's willing to take them both as is, dismantle them. He'd like to, take the interior piping that goes with them too, so far as they can reach it. Obviously, some of it might not be reachable because buildings are full of stuff, but, we've been trying to move those for quite a while, and otherwise we were working on putting them up for a surplus auction with a guarantee they go there. I guess I'd recommend, if we wanna get rid of them, to take them up on their offer and be rid of them.
Mr. Hauser.
Is there any consideration for, patching sides or holes, whatever, when, if they do take them out? Who's gonna do that, or how's that gonna be taken care of?
Yeah, we would need to patch. I don't know if that's something maintenance is capable of, otherwise, if you want to approve it contingent on their company putting a patch in, I can send that to them too.
Well, I'm just curious,
It would need,
dimension of it,
would need to be patched.
it should be accounted for. Before we
It's a good point.
go ahead.
Does maintenance have any thought on that?
I guess if they're getting them for free, if they would like to cover them, that'd be great, otherwise if they don't, I can do it, but, it'd be nice if they would do it in the transition or whatever.
I'd entertain a motion to allow Centerline to remove the dust collection systems from the exterior of both those buildings along with connected interior piping. Provided, however, that arrangements are made either by their willingness or in the absence of a county maintenance to be able to, patch any openings in the exterior wall. Anybody care to make that motion?
I'll move to that.
Mr. Tater has moved approval.
I'll second.
Mr. Rabin, Mr. Kenyon has seconded the motion. You've heard the motion in the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no. Motion carried. I had, put on this agenda consideration of doing some preliminary planning to link the two buildings that front on Jez Road. The one is actually addressed at 501 Doughty Road, but it corners with Jez Road. And there's a second building identical to it, further to the north, exactly 200 feet away. Same floor elevation. Our thought years ago when the second building was constructed was to construct them in that way so that someday we could potentially connect the two and create one building of 60,000 square feet rather than have two of 20,000, because we have found over time that larger buildings that we've had have attracted a lot of attention and resulted in some fairly large companies moving in here, examples being Henry, Repeating Arms, and Centerline, who we were just talking about. But I urge you to hang on to the handle of your chair when you look at this. I'm not sure how many of these I have, so.
We can look down here.
And I asked just for some advisory numbers from Short Elliott Hendrickson, which I believe probably designed one of these buildings. And you see the highlighted information there on the front page indicates that connecting section, they believe today would cost on the order of $3.7 million to build, $250,000 just to design it. It's a lot of money even by your standards, Mr. Chairman. Yes, it is. So I'm supposing we're probably not gonna do a whole lot with that right now, but I thought that would be something.
Good information though.
yeah, to be aware of. Now, hopefully, some of that cost reflects problems that trace back to the pandemic, and maybe some of those kinds of costs will go down somewhat over time. I guess we can only hope that's the case. Another thing I'd like to suggest here, and this is gonna get repetitive, is, I think that we have received an unsolicited offer to purchase this particular property. And, I believe it would be a good idea to consider getting it appraised. And I think we should appraise every one of the properties on this list, so that if we do get offers or interest, that we have a good sound basis on which to reply. We may even wanna actually set sale prices that we would accept. But before we do that, I'd recommend that we get several buildings appraised, and this would be one of those. And I'm gonna touch back on this subject down under the closed session in item K.
Make a comment?
Sure.
I think that the numbers are probably a lot closer to that $170 a square foot than we'd like to think. Residential is probably in that 200, give or take, square foot range. That's just conventional housing. Commercial buildings like this, what my point would be that even though we can't afford to put another one up right now, I don't think we wanna be looking at getting rid of some of the buildings if we can lease them for what they need to be leased for, because replacing those buildings is gonna get real expensive in the near future. So what we wanna do, and probably should be thinking of doing, is getting our lease rates up where they need to be, rather than trying to sell some of these at a fire sale. Because at some point in time, the market's gonna change, and we're gonna wind up having use for these buildings. So if we keep lease, I think we're ahead of the game. The other thing is, when people are looking to move into a community, they're probably most of the time looking for an existing building. Is a good example. They're looking for something that's there. They don't wanna wait. They're ready to do something. They wanna have a building to move into. So,
This is just the cover page, and if you flip it over, this is the appraised value that Gardelak Appraisals from Rice Lake came up with on the Fritz Avenue building. I'm gonna hand out now the one for the Gates Avenue building. And again, Ashley will have the ability to print these out in full. It's a fairly exhaustive document, I don't know, it's probably 60 pages. But again, it gives us a starting point to discuss values so far as any sale would go. One with 5 phones. Does anybody have any questions about those right offhand? Mayor Grutzinger, if you wanna come up here, I can share some documents with you.
I'll catch up with you later.
Okay.
ask a question that goes back to animal shelter for just a second.
Sure.
Has anybody talked with the Friends of the Animal Shelter or whatever that group is about funding some of this stuff? And there was a push by that group to get the animal shelter built.
still in existence.
I don't know.
I believe so, and I don't know the details, but I think that discussion is ongoing. Gary, do you have anything about that?
I think Terry Wedwick would, they'll,
I'm just,
let
I
you know
guess
more.
I'm looking to reach out, if we're gonna start looking at modifying a building that's only not that many years old.
I thought
think
that, I thought they were talking, there was some talk on that, but, like I said, Terry Wedwick would be the one that probably know more on that.
The next item that I'm going to hand out, and I'm on the Enterprise Center now, item 2F. The next item is a proposal from Apex Engineering, which specializes in heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, to do design work for vehicle exhaust equipment in 2 properties, and I just learned today that we may need to look at something like that with a 3rd building. And while I'm passing these out, I'm gonna do something which isn't lawful, which is to act like an attorney, but Mr. Kenyon's here to actually, to comment, and I think what he told the city of Ladysmith in the past was, and I think most attorneys would tell you, is that once you're aware of a problem, if you don't take action to resolve it, you are subject to greater liability than you would have been had you not known. Can you elaborate on that while I'm?
I think you pretty well summarized it.
So this relates to the fact that we have vehicle storage occurring in the Enterprise Center, the Gates Avenue building, and I learned today in the Doughty Road building as well. And that one, I'm not sure if it's an issue because it's unheated, but the other buildings where there's heating equipment and flammable materials, I believe that in order to be in compliance with building codes, there needs to be ventilation equipment within the lower 18 inches above the floor to get vehicle exhaust out. And this is a proposal to design that for 2 of those buildings. So I will pass on that for today because I don't believe I have it down there for action. But we'll put it on the next agenda, so please draw your conclusions before then. I have down on the second bullet point under Enterprise Center, clarification of the Rusk County Transit Police. Ashley, is that something you were going to do with?
Yes, so Cheryl had been in contact with Jamie, just looking for a little bit of, clarification on what exactly they're supposed to be paying per month. Jamie and I think it's $401 a month.
Oh, yeah, if I can give a little background, this committee just approved, an additional lease, for our CTC at the last meeting. If you recall, they were looking to move all their dispatchers into what was the conference room at the Enterprise Center. And at the time, they were willing to give up one of their corner offices, I believe it was office number 102. So the net change in square footage there, I think, without having the numbers in front of me, resulted in $136 additional per month.
Yep.
But then since you approved that, they had a better idea that they keep office 102 and just combine, there's also like a lunchroom, a break room in there, and they'd move the conference tables in there, so then it would serve as a conference room, but also as a break room. They ran that past Best Enterprises, who was the only other occupant in the office portion of the building, and they said they were fine with it, at least according to emails I received. So what they are now looking to do provision to their lease, to be able to continue renting room 102 in addition to what was the conference room. That would result in a net change of $401 per month, additional that they pay in rent, which, if you can bear with me 1 second, comes out to $4,812 in additional rent realized per year. And realistically, that it's a room that, we've never charged rent for previously, so it's all a net gain. It's already getting heated, already getting lights, and the tenants are all fine with that change, so. And then just to clarify too, in looking through their historical leases, they have been allowed to get a reduction on their rent of $10,386 off what the market rate was that was used for in-kind match, which I'm not overly familiar with RCTC, maybe Mr. Raven is, but I believe that in-kind and dollar matches help out their ability to get their federal grants, so that amount would stay the same, so there'd still just be that net realization of $4,800 a year, which I think the Enterprise Center has historically lost money, so this gets you a little closer to making up some of that difference. If the committee would be willing to entertain approving that. I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, Ashley, or is that kind of?
Nope, you covered it all. Cheryl just needs some kind of clarification from the committee about what exactly they're supposed to be paying everyone. And if we move with the plan that Alan just, described, they would just like a new lease.
Would somebody care to make a motion to, essentially agree with the, rent structure that's just been laid out?
I'll move to that effect.
Randy has made a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Tony has seconded. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no? Motion's carried. Alan, can you, provide us an update on the 5-hour cleanup at Enterprise Center?
Yeah, it's in process. If anyone's been out there, I'm sure Gary at least has been past it. They had to pull the trailers forward a bit. They, at the Enterprise Center, they were all kind of tucked on the back end of a lot. The trailers had sunk into the blacktop, you know, they'd sat there, what, a decade, maybe 15 years. The blacktop's about 2 inches thick, so in moving the stuff and with the weather we've been having, there's a decent chunk of blacktop that's just all chewed to heck. Didn't have a lot of base course under it when it was put in. But they are in the process of unloading those trailers and moving the contents into roadworthy trailers. Most of the 5-hour trailers, the brakes were all locked up on them, seized up, and I think one they even had to cut the legs off the front of it because those were stuck in the ground so deep and were still frozen in. So just kind of a mess. The city just signed a notice to proceed with Haas Sons out of Thorpe on rebuilding Barnett and Gustafson Road, and they'll be in there as early as May 1st, possibly pulverizing either May 1st or May 15th. So what I was gonna look at between now and then, assuming that the cleanup there at Enterprise is done, is while they've got the pulverizer and getting permission from the city to maybe fund pulverizing that chewed up blacktop, just so it's a, you know, a nice level gravel base, and then, you know, this committee can look at repaving it if they think it's necessary at some point, but figured while they're there, that way it saves some mobilization and all that, so something I plan to look into, short of any objections here. I can't imagine it would cost too much. Anyway, yeah, the short of it is, it's all in process.
Will the trailers become our property once they're emptied?
Yep, the DNR has told me numerous times they don't consider those to be contaminated, so they're ours to do with as we please once they're emptied. So whether we put those up on the Wisconsin surplus site or just take them to a scrap yard, they're probably gonna be a pain in the butt to move, though I don't know, the ins and outs of getting the wheels broken free or loaded onto flatbeds or whatever, but someone's willing to give us a few bucks.
Storage containers.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Ducell.
That all depends on, are the ash cams froze up, or is it just the brake shoes themselves? Are the chambers froze? If all of that stuff was froze up during the time they're sitting there, it could be quite expensive to get them in a mobile situation where they could be pulled. If you're gonna move them a short distance, a guy can probably bust the brakes loose enough to get the wheels to turn, if they're gonna go fairly local. If they're gonna go a many distance, so the answer's probably no.
Is that something you'd be interested in checking out, Terry?
I could look at it, Al, I mean, providing we get a day that I ain't gonna put a duck suit on to do it, but. And it's gonna depend too, are they, which style of brakes are they? They spring, emergency parking brakes, or are they air over parking brakes? Are they Dayton hubs on them? There's a lot of variables in that. But yeah, I can stop and look.
Thank you. Does anyone have any objections to Alan looking at the potential for pulverizing that? I guess I don't see any objections, go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's more than, just the trailers behind the enterprise too, right? How many trailers are there?
There's 5 at Enterprise, I believe, and then 4 over at Gates. I don't believe, at least as of today,
Where are they all parked, Al?
the ones at Gates.
Either one,
Oh, the ones at Enterprise are all north of the building.
okay,
In that
North of the
back
building.
blacktop area.
okay,
At Gates, there's one off, West 8th Street, there's like a gravel parking lot.
yeah, I know where that's at.
There's 2 kinda directly west of the Gates building across 7th Street.
Okay,
And then there's one way back behind the building on the south end of it that's sunk into the gravel pretty good. As far as I know, they haven't started doing any work on those yet, but they will, I think, once they're done at the Enterprise Center. And hopefully the, blacktop has firmed up a little more by then, so we don't have the same issue over there.
Any further questions on that? Tony?
Yeah, DNR's kind of controlling this. Are they actually removing contaminated material? Who's doing it and how is it being done? I mean, are they transferring the stuff from one trailer to something that's hauling it off to a hazardous center or what?
Yeah, the DNR contracted with Veolia Environmental, and so they're taking everything out of the 5R trailers and putting them into roadworthy trailers that either they own or, that they rented from somebody. And they're hauling all that to a certified landfill and, crossing all their T's, dotting their I's, and the DNR is funding it.
Essentially, when they get done, all the trailers are gonna be actually empty.
Yep, trailers will be, and ours.
There's some stuff over at, not far on 2% property.
Yep, they've been working on that too, they wanted to get,
Is that in trailers or is that in the building?
it's all in the building,
Okay.
as far as I know. And they were having issues getting back there too, because everything's so soft. None of that stuff is lightweight, so it's taking a little longer than they anticipated. At least it's getting done finally.
Further questions on the cleanup? Thank you. If not, we'll move to the Fritz Avenue plant. I know that Mr. Reynolds, who leases space at that location, has an issue to bring up relative to roof water drainage and a potential solution for that. And I think that he's got some photographs that he's put out in front of you, so Marty, if you'll address that.
I guess I'll start, I'm gonna back up just a little bit, when Mr. Christensen was talking about lease rates and so on and so forth. If you figure the lease and utilities and the cost of the improvements, we're actually paying about $6.50 a square foot over at, where FHC in Marshfield has moved in for their alcohol and drug rehab. But they've come up with a problem, I guess I noticed it early in winter, with the snow and the ice on the roof up there. What's happening, if you look at the first of these, actually look at the small picture first. You'll see that, there's snow up there, and this was just taken a couple days ago, these two pictures. But what's happened over the winter is, as the ice melts up through the roof and the water comes off, it runs down, and some of it runs down through the rain gutter. It's on the north side of the door, and then the rest of it melts and comes off, hits the hooper wall, and then runs down. But what's happening, and it's really noticeable in the wintertime, you didn't notice it last fall, is that it basically runs under the door and runs along the crack with the building. The block on the building meets the support cement base out there. And so about every few days, I wind up going over there, wound up all winter long, going over there, shop vacuuming all of the carpet out of there, as far as that goes, and then shoveling it away and whatever, because what's happening is it freezes, and as it thaws, it comes off of this little arched roof, it drops down, never gets to the rain gutter that runs down the wall, and goes back onto that area where the door is, and it goes under the door, and that's wet all, and we put new carpet in and everything else, but anyhow, that's the problem. I've talked with a couple of contractors, and the suggestion that I've got is that we need to change the roof line on that. If you look at the little picture, you see where I drew some pencil line. We'll put a mono pitch roof that basically ties into the Hooper building, where Miss Crispin used to be, ties into that and runs down across over the top, and then putting in a cement block wall, where if you look at the big picture or the small one, you'll see posts on the right side of the door. Build that out basically far enough, probably to match the edge of the roof, edge of the wall on the Hooper building, and follows it right out. It'll take that water away from the door, and then we build a cement wall that follows pretty much the line of that post there. And that would keep, and then seal it really good at the bottom. That'll keep the water from getting back under there and winding up going inside the door. Like I said, when we were working on it in the summertime and prior to, nobody noticed it, but in talking to some of the previous tenants, they said it's always been a problem. There's always been water comes in that door. And so I've got a solution that I believe will work. I've been talking with a couple contractors, and they seem to think that the mono pitch roof is gonna be a key to it, and the other part of it would be keep the water as it comes down that spout from running back under the door. So I'm looking at one of two things. I can pay for it on the front end, and if the joint management committee will go along with doing something like this, with modifying the building a little bit. It's an exterior, which is, we're not responsible for the exterior of the building or the roof or anything like that, but this is part of the problem. So what I'm saying is that I can pay for it after I find out what this runs, but then I would either like to be reimbursed or use it as part of the lease payments that I'm making, get a reduction on at least that until it's paid off. It would be a long term, but again, I gotta find out what it's gonna cost to do that. But I think that, as I said, Key Care was in there, and they had the same know I was part of drafting that lease and that proposal with the dollars, because I think that what we should be doing, if I'm gonna make the arguments, if we don't lease high enough, we don't charge enough for the lease, we're charging for the buildings around, then I can't hardly say, well, okay, then I'll go in at $3 a foot or $2.50 a foot or whatever. So that's one of the reasons why our lease is probably one of the most expensive. By the same token, FHC, Marshfield, I think thinks they should have at least a building that's dry on the inside, so I'm amenable to whatever kind of, solution you come up with, or whatever you're willing to come up with, whether it's, to get outright on the front end, based on, the bids that come in, or I'll pay for it on the front end and take a reduction in the lease over the next, 10 years or whatever it is. Just so you do know, I anticipated that, we were going to be able to depreciate, we were going to be able to take that as tax credits or tax deductions on the $160,000 we put into the building, which the county gets back when we move out, or when my contract is up, my lease is up. So, but they'll let me depreciate it over 15 years. So there's the $160,000 becomes basically an expense done on a yearly basis. But something needs to be done, and I guess I'm asking, suggestions or proposals or anything else. You don't have to decide on now, think about it, and listen to people complain about it or whatever is fine, but something's gotta be done with it.
I'll put action on the, next agenda, and in the meantime, maybe we can work up a tentative agreement that outlines the details and get it out to people possibly in advance of it.
And I'm willing to work with whatever, but again, I don't expect anyone to make a decision until we know what this is actually gonna cost. And I'm thinking we can just pretty much go over that arched roof, put a new roof on top of it, and then kind of close it up so it looks professional. If you've been in that building, and I think most of you, you've noticed that it's a very professional looking facility now, as opposed to just a warehouse is what it was. And FHC is really comfortable with it, so, and we're also, at some point in time, well, that's a different story. We need to fix this though, so I'll put a proposal together, and then hopefully we can decide if there's any thing that works with you. Yeah.
Marty, if it rains, say you didn't have the snow up there, if it rains, does it go under the door?
A little bit, but not bad. It's nowhere as near what it is with the ice and everything else.
You book that angle over the roof, where the water's out there. If you just ran a wall 1 block high out to this post and then beyond, and include the post right in the wall, that would seal it off, right?
We can seal it with that, and again, I'm looking at a proposal from 2 different contractors. They both suggested at least a 4-foot wall, so people aren't tripping over it, people aren't, running into it, whatever. And the same with plowing. If you've got just a 1 block wall, there's always gonna be somebody's gonna try to push snow into there, or whatever. But the other thing is, that as it comes down, we can't go clear out too far, because then we run into that window. And the water sheeting off of that whole roof line and hitting the window, and then we have the same problem. So, it's, again, I'll get a proposal with, the contract, and then I'll get back to you. So,
I would agree with Marty, that's a problem area. The county's been there a couple times, kind of, throughout the winter there. I know we had a hot wash the gutters and the downspouts, and, actually we shoveled off the roof there one time too.
it's a part of the roof, like I said, we really noticed it in the winter. And the other thing is, when you start getting snow blowing in there, what it will do is actually provide, not quite an air brake, but something close to it. And it'll keep stuff from blowing in there and, creating ice issues and whatever. And as I said when I started talking about this, I'm over there every day in the morning, making sure that everything's cleaned out and dried out and whatever. And, which is fine with me. I would rather have that happen than somebody sue me because they tripped or fell or whatever. But the main issue is we got water going under the door. And under that wall, right in that corner there. It seeps under that wall, and, so it's a water issue.
other, questions, issues, concerns relative to the Fritz Avenue plant?
We just had a boiler inspection done there today and everything passed.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick one, I turned it back on Sunday.
Yep.
When the temperatures were dropping again.
Yep.
Cause I shut it down when it was getting warm in there, but I turned it back on and everything seemed to be working well, so.
Yep.
As always, and I appreciate you guys taking your time keeping an eye on the boiler.
Going to move on to the Gates Avenue plant then. Alan has already updated us on the cleanup of, contaminants left by 5R. I think you also have a small lease to bring up, the last bullet point.
Oh, yeah, the A&M Fiberglass have reached out about the possibility of leasing, if you're familiar with the sheriff's storage there, if you're on the east side of the building, back towards the water tower, there's a block portion that I think is painted to match all the metal siding. But that block portion is actually split into two pieces, one that's accessed from the inside, that the sheriff does utilize, but then there's another portion that's only accessed from the outside, you can't get into the rest of the sheriff portion. It's currently under, the sheriff's key though, it's back when they rekeyed everything, so they could control access there. That got keyed along with it. I talked to the sheriff, I've got an email from him, I think Gary was on that email chain, he has no use for that space. It's about 10 by 10, maybe even 9 by 9, unheated, concrete floor, block walls, so, A&M has been and looked at it, they need to look at it a couple more times, but I guess my thought maybe in the interim would be to rekey that door, since the sheriff doesn't need it, that way we don't have to inconvenience the sheriff to keep getting into it, looking at it. If it doesn't work for A&M Fiberglass, there's certainly some stuff just in general storage, in that, newest section of the building that probably doesn't need to be in heated storage, and could be tucked in there even for the time being. I don't think it makes sense to leave a room sitting empty that you could utilize for something, so.
Did A&M say what it is they would use it for?
They're looking to move some of their fiberglass related chemical drums, into something that would be a little more conducive to chemical storage by OSHA standards.
That would be because of the concrete structure.
Yeah, that's what they're looking at it for. But they haven't committed to wanting to lease it yet, so I was just looking to see if we could rekey it in the meantime, since the sheriff has confirmed that he has no use for that small space. That way it's at least available to move some of that other stuff that's, packed in around where the bear bait guy is currently and where the ambulance is, there's weed whackers, I think there's some old office chairs, stuff like that still sitting in there too, that probably doesn't need to be in heated storage.
Would anyone care to make a motion to authorize rekeying that room under the circumstances?
So moved.
Mr. Kenyon's made a motion, is there a second?
Is there access to, private access, outside access to it?
Yeah.
Or the, family access and stuff? Okay, just the one door. I'll second it.
Okay, you've heard the motion and second, Mr. Raven seconded, does anyone have any further questions? Anything to add? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no? Motion carried.
If I may too, just on Gates Avenue, I wanted to pass something home. This was an email that came from WEDC, it went out to a whole ton of folks, they do these on occasions, every once in a while there's a business that reaches out to them and, is looking for specifics, as far as building size, in this case, it was a, facility that's looking for anywhere from 15,000 to 40,000 square feet that they would, invest $1 million in and would conceivably, bring 10 to 20 jobs with it. We don't really have anything that's readily available. I'm sure that, however, I believe the last meeting here, and I believe at county property a month ago, there was, you know, some discussion of, needing to find some space that would work for the sheriff and, maybe something that would be a little more permanent and reliable for the second ambulance in town. So, I guess just if anything else, to let you know that, yeah, there's always places, looking for space, and we've got some that's potentially available. If we work together on, finding a permanent, better location for like the sheriff's SWAT vehicle, the ambulance, any of his, evidence storage or the city TD's evidence storage that needs to be indoors, and, maybe putting a fenced area off of that as well. I'm toying with the idea, and maybe we can, if we're having a meeting next week, you can put it on there for action to at least submit that north part of Gates for consideration. It doesn't guarantee that they'll look at it at all, as you see this email went far and wide. Maybe if they do get back and say that they're interested in looking at it though, it just kinda ups the ante, and maybe we try to get moving a little faster on, trying to work together to, maximize our storage abilities and all of that. So just something to chew on, something to look at, don't need any action here. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, moving to item 2I, the Juz Road building. My only comment there is, it's another building that I think we should have appraised. It's gonna appraise very close to the one at 501 Doughty Road, because they're identical buildings, except that 501 Doughty has heating and plumbing and an office in it. Otherwise, they're very comparable buildings.
Are they both concreted? I thought just the 501.
No, both of them are.
Oh, yeah.
The one to the north probably isn't insulated either. So, they do have those, differences. If there's no other thoughts on that building, I'm gonna move to other. I don't know if anybody has any comments on that. I raised an issue at a previous meeting, and I still have it, and maybe it's only my issue. I'm not entirely certain why we need to be, overseeing the visitor center, the library, or the animal shelter, because there are separate boards that deal with those specific facilities. I'm not necessarily getting interested in creating an argument, I'm not sure. I think, to me, it's, maybe there's, one layer more than is necessary in each case. So, we can take that up some other time.
I think that the financing and budget issues were probably what the driving factor here.
Do you think that needs to continue, or is that something
Well,
that maybe?
I think the library board would have difficulty in formulating a budget for maybe repairs or something like that, or maintenance. So, that's kind of my thoughts. So,
All right.
like I said, when Chad Lefranker was here, he spoke to both groups, city and county, and that, and so everybody was aware.
Yeah, and now both groups are dealing with a potential addition to the animal shelter, so.
Right.
And I'm just not entirely sure why both need to, but you may be right, maybe the staffing or the people that are involved, at the animal shelter would like the additional input, so. I'll let it go at that for now. Moving to item K, the, closed session. Here.
Before you do that, I I just wanted to mention the, you know, the library and, Fritz Avenue there by Dull Trucking there, they got the mold samples or whatever. Them come back or whatever, there is mold in there. I got a quote to do them, to come and clean them and everything. I just wanted to get your approval to do that, so everything's all safe there. The library, I think it would be maybe a shutdown of maybe a day or something, just for them to do that. The library total, it would be, $3,928.67 for them.
How much?
$3,928.67, and that would be to come in, they'd clean everything up, they'd clean the air.
Could you kinda tell us a little bit about where that's concentrated?
Basically in the library, there is some, not a lot, it's on the first floor there against the windows there behind the bookcases there.
Okay.
And that,
Did you provide a number on Dahlstrom?
yep, and then on Dahlstrom, that one's a little more, but that one, it's a little more extensive. The total for that would be $8,030.06. But that is, basically every room in that, area there would need to be cleaned, and, the ventilation system would get cleaned, and also the top side of that occupied space, they would also clean that too, because, there's just a lot of dirt and kind of chemicals.
Were you able to determine when you were there if there's a vehicle exhaust system in that section?
An exhaust, I believe in the building side there, isn't there, an exhaust there, Marty?
Yeah.
No? It seems like the cause of that was a condensate pump, looks like, from years prior, that it maybe took a crap, and then I think the water kind of leaked on the roof there, and I think that's what it looks like happened, I guess. And it can be fixed, but, they said in probably 2 to 3 days, Dahlstrom will have to be out of the building. And then I think Liberty Roofing is in there too, I believe, in that one section too.
Okay. This one probably, isn't clearly on the agenda, and I will put it on the next one, and I'm thinking that meeting may be held, fairly soon.
Okay.
We might have gone a little bit over the line with the rekeying, but I thought it was a relatively insignificant, dollar amount, but this is a fair amount of money, so we better get it on the next agenda. Any other, concerns before somebody makes a motion to go into closed session? And when you make a motion to go into closed session, if you're inviting everyone present to sit in, or limiting attendance, please indicate that in your motion. Typically, city, or county elected officials or staff would be allowed to remain.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Are you limiting attendance?
I'll leave when you're done.
Yeah.
After motion, I will leave.
The camera will have to go.
Yeah.
So.
Is there a second to Randy's motion?
Awesome.
Tony has seconded. All those in, I guess I need to do this, roll call, yeah. Randy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yeah.
John?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Yes. We'll, give everyone a